The first order of things is to see you both dressed properly, Margaret said as soon as Davina and Theo appeared in the cave she now occupied. Theo, you have clothes in that trunk. I believe I have something that will fit Davina. Theo surveyed their surroundings. Where are we? I have been forced to move my things into a cave about 4 miles from the estate. Luella's doing, Margaret said with disgust. Wow, things must be bad, he said with a scowl. He'd only ever seen Margaret surrounded by aristocratic luxury. Seeing how a woman of her station and breeding was having to make do in a dirty cave was heartbreaking. It started a few weeks ago and has escalated beyond reason. Where I was once accepted in society with the grace afforded the aristocracy, I am now on the run. I have seen 10 women who were accused of being witches burned at the stake in 1 week. 2 of them were dear friends. What do you think she did? Davina asked with concern as she slipped into the dress Margaret provided her. From what I can tell, she shifted things in the 17th century. Instead of them coming to reason about witches, they have gone off the cliff. The mere whisper that one is a witch and she is condemned. It is Salem all over again, Margaret said with disgust. You know about Salem? Davina said, and then blushed after realizing how ridiculous her comment was. Margaret gave her a condescending smile, but said nothing. What century are we in now? Davina asked. Margaret pinched the bridge of her nose. You know very well that I live in the 19th century, she heaved a sigh. It should be a time when that type of nonsense was supposed to be behind us. In fact, it should be a time when visionaries and mediums reign supreme. Madame Blavatsky, Davina said with a nod. Margaret shook her head with dismay. If my sources are correct, she was burned at the stake yesterday. That's altering history, Davina exclaimed, and blushed again at yet another absurd statement. That history will stay altered if we do not stop that evil twin of yours soon, Margaret said with a voice that reeked of sadness. Theo stepped forward and placed his arm protectively around Davina's shoulders. Tell us what you want us to do. Margaret marched to the back of the cave and produced a sword. Handing it to Theo, she said, You stand guard outside while I work with our young protege. She studied Davina in the dress she'd given her. It probably was not necessary for you to change clothes because we will not be leaving this cave. It is not safe. But just in case someone finds us, seeing you in futuristic attire would not support my case of not being a witch very well. It is an absolute chaotic mess out there. Theo walked to the cave opening with sword in hand. Hide the opening. I don't even want to be able to see it. Don't come out until you're sure Davina is ready. As he stepped outside, they could hear the sound of horses approaching. Margaret quickly placed a screen over the front of the cave. It allowed her and Davina to see what was happening while disguising the opening. Theo walked away from the opening as if he hadn't a care in the world. When 6 men on horseback stopped just yards away from him, he casually leaned on his sword and greeted them with an impeccable British accent that hinted of aristocracy.